13 died, 10 injured in Lagos-Ibadan highway multiple accident. APC National Working Committee sets up a conciliatory panel as Oshiomhole Obaseki crisis deepens. In international news, testimonies at U.S. impeachment hearings tie President Trump more directly to a Ukraine quid pro quo. And in sport, Nigerians expressed their displeasure over poor TV coverage of Nigeria-Benin match.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. 13 persons have been confirmed dead and 10 injured in multiple accidents on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway on Wednesday. Sector Commander of the Federal Road Safety Corps, Clement Oladile, says the accident occurred when a speeding truck suddenly suffered a tire blowout and rammed into two oncoming buses. This happened at a diversion at a construction section on the highway. Oladile says 4 men, 7 women and 2 children died in the accident. Biodun Olujimi of the People's Democratic Party has been sworn in as senator to represent Ekiti South, a week after the Court of Appeal in Kaduna declared her winner. In the Ekiti South senatorial election held in February, former Senate spokesperson Adedayo Adeyeye of the All Progressives Congress was declared winner. Olujimi challenged the results at the election tribunal, alleging irregularities. She claimed she scored the highest number of lawful votes cast during the keenly contested poll and asked the tribunal to nullify Adeyeye's victory and declare her winner or order a supplementary election accordingly in the district. At the final computation, Olujimi polled 54,894 votes to emerge victorious over the chairman of the Senate Committee on Media and Publicity, Adeyeye's 52,243 votes. Olujimi's seat swears the number of female lawmakers in the Senate to 8. Chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, Professor Bolaji Owasoye, says Nigeria is expecting $400 million of another Abacha loot from the United States. Owasoye says the money is hidden in more than 12 countries, each with different legal requirements and asset return. It says many countries are currently benefiting from these monies, which makes it very difficult to secure the quick return of the looted funds. Professor Owasoye revealed this while delivering a keynote address in Lagos at the 42nd Annual Conference of the Nigerian Society of International Law. Owasoye says another $322 million Abacha loot was returned to Nigeria 2 years ago from Switzerland as part of the Abacha loot, which is being used for the conditional cash transfer. The professor also said Nigeria has recovered another $73 million from the UK, which was abandoned there as part of proceeds from Malabu oil transaction. National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress has set up a fact-finding and reconciliation committee to resolve issues rocking the Edo chapter of the party. The problems are between factions supporting the governor of the state, Godwin Obaseki, and national chairman of the party, Adams Oshiomhole. Director General of the Progressives Governors Forum, Saliu Lukman, has called for Adams Oshiomhole's resignation this week. Lukman says the party's national chairman should either convene the party's National Executive Council meeting or resign. In a swift reaction, APC National Vice Chairman South Hilliard Etta dismissed Lukman's statement in a newspaper interview, saying the DG was speaking for himself. The crisis worsened on Tuesday when an APC faction suspended the state chairman, Anselm Ojezua, an Obaseki loyalist. APC National Working Committee has upheld the suspension of State Chairman Anselm Ojezua, who was suspended by 11 of 16 Executive Council members. The party said a lasting solution would be found to the disagreement. It said the suspension would remain until the Fact-Finding and Reconciliation Committee produced its report. Isanyi people in Oyo State are appealing to Governor Seyi Makinde to look into the dilapidated state of the Odo-Ogun Bridge along Isanyi-Oyo Road. Members of the community say the bridge is at the brink of collapse. If it is allowed to cave in, they say it could cause loss of lives and property. National President of Iseyin Development Union, Alhaji Bayo Raji, says the bridge was built more than 7 decades ago. Motorists plying Oyo Iseyin say they have also lamented federal government's neglect of the road, which has been causing hardships for travelers and vehicles transporting goods via the road. The Lagos State government has announced the closure of Yaba and Jibo axes alternatively for the next 2 Saturdays from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. the next day for the level cross construction of rail tracks. The Jibo axis will be closed this Saturday, while the Yaba axis of the rail will be shut down on the following Saturday. The routes will be closed at night to ensure smooth and uninterrupted flow of work on the rail tracks. The routes will be used interchangeably as alternative routes for motorists. When one axis is under construction, the other will be opened to motorists.
Coming up, African stories, Vatican and local faith-based groups at odds with discussions at the population conference held in Nairobi. And later, international news. Testimonies at U.S. impeachment hearings tie President Trump closely to Ukraine quid pro quo.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. BRICS leaders wrap up their 11th Economic Summit today in the Brazilian capital of Brasilia. This year's meeting is seen to usher in a second golden decade for more cooperation among the 5 emerging markets. BRICS members reaffirmed support for multilateralism and partnerships.
The last time a BRIC Summit happened in Brazil in 2014, the launch of the group's new development bank was a highlight of the meeting. Since then, the 5 nations developed different mechanisms for political cooperation, trade and investment. Now their leaders gather again to discuss new projects and contemporary challenges. This year's declaration is being drafted.
So we are going to make some comments about strengthening and reforming multilateralism. It includes the UN, the IMF, the Security Council, the WTO. We are also going to make comments about our economic and financial cooperation in several areas.
The ambassador of South Africa in Brasilia says his country is well aware of the importance of working with international partners.
South Africa of today comes from a history of working with the whole world. We are the best beneficiaries of the world working together, because were it not for solidarity from throughout the world, South Africa would still not be a free and democratic society. We want to make sure that South Africa is known as a reliable partner.
For the Minister Councillor in the Chinese Embassy in Brazil, a unified approach to multilateralism is essential.
We BRIC countries are going to send out a strong message to the international community that we are defending strongly the multilateral system, a more open, free, fair international trade system. So I think that will be a very strong message this summit will deliver to the international community.
In this conference in São Paulo ahead of the summit, representatives from nations also discussed the present and the future of the bloc.
There is great potential in this grouping to contribute to the reform of global bodies on the political side, like UN Security Council. It needs to reflect the current global order.
During the summit, nations have much to discuss, yet it remains to be seen how successful these countries will be in working together to push forward their common agenda in the international arena.
Over the last 10 years, the BRICS nations have worked toward finding mutual areas of interest, from trade to science and technology. The leaders have hailed it as a golden decade. They say they are ready to start a new era of cooperation. Gerald Tan reports.
Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. Together they form what's known as the BRICS nations. The acronym was originally coined at the start of the new millennium. It referenced the 4 emerging markets demonstrating rapid growth and vast economic potential. When South Africa joined in 2010, the S was added to the grouping. And today the alliance is proving more resilient than ever. The 5 BRICS countries cover more than 42% of the global population, spread out over a large geographic area. And you can see the breakdown here. China and India, the world's most populous nations, have more than 1.3 billion people each. And these are some of the strongest drivers, accounting for nearly a quarter of the global economy. World Bank figures shows China eclipses the others with a gross domestic product topping $13 trillion. India's GDP is more than $2.7 trillion, while Brazil and Russia are both reaching $2 trillion apiece. This year marks 10 years of BRICS cooperation. Although there is no common political or security charter or funds to finance its activities, the countries are making more concerted efforts to enhance partnerships in a variety of areas, from global governance to trade.
As the International Conference on Population and Development winds down in Nairobi, the Vatican, as well as local faith-based groups and pro-life campaigners, have criticized the discussions at the gathering. The conference attracted more than 6,000 participants from 160 countries. The 3-day meeting has delved into issues ranging from maternal deaths and child marriage to sex education and female genital mutilation. Wakista Inyabua reports.
25 years after the first International Conference on Population and Development was held, a section of world leaders and stakeholders assembled yet again, this time in Nairobi, to take stock of the progress. The 3-day conference is dubbed ICPD 25. In 1994, in Cairo, Egypt, 179 governments made a declaration to work towards zero maternal deaths, zero cases of gender violence, and zero harmful practices against girls. This in recognition of the fact that the success of these goals is tied to the development goals of different countries.
Today, we stand united to declare the time to act is now. Never lose sight of who it is that we're fighting for. Anyone excluded, neglected, abused, forgotten.
We cannot return to a time when women had little say in reproductive issues, or for that matter, in any area of their lives. I think we can all agree that ICPD was a turning point, a defining moment in our history.
The conference, co-convened by Kenya and Denmark and hosted by the UNFPA, creating a platform to celebrate the gains made this far. But several hurdles still stand in the way of the rise of women and girls. 1 in 5 women continues to experience gender-based violence. 800 women and girls die every day during pregnancy and childbirth, and every year 4 million girls endure the painful effects of FGM.
We need to accelerate the promise of Cairo in order to build sustainable, vibrant, and inclusive societies. But if we fail to deliver on the Cairo promise, we risk consigning our children to a less secure future than we inherited.
The United Nations Population Fund estimates that it will cost $264 billion towards safeguarding women and girls and their rights. Already, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Somalia and Ethiopia have signed an agreement to address cross-border FGM. Delegates will also make a Nairobi declaration as the world works to keep the Cairo promise.
When we return, international news. Testimonies at U.S. impeachment hearings tie President Trump closely to Ukraine quid pro quo. And later, sports. Viewers slam NTA over poor TV coverage of Super Eagles match.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to international stories. The top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine testifying on Wednesday in the first televised hearing of the impeachment inquiry against President Donald Trump linked him more directly to a pressure campaign on Ukraine to conduct investigations that would benefit him politically. William Taylor was one of two career diplomats who testified before the House of Representatives Intelligence Committee at a crucial new phase began in the impeachment inquiry, which threatens Trump's presidency even as he seeks re-election in 2020. Both Taylor and George Kent testified about the pressure Trump and allies applied to get Ukraine to investigate Democratic political rival Joe Biden over his son's business dealings in Ukraine. In a disclosure that drew the most attention, Taylor, acting ambassador to Ukraine, pointed to Trump's keen interest in getting the Eastern European ally to investigate Biden, a former vice president, and reiterated his understanding that $391 million in U.S. security aid was withheld from Ukraine unless it cooperated. A fresh protest erupted on Wednesday in Bolivia hours after opposition Senator Joaquin Anez was sworn in as interim president. The country's longtime leaders, Evo Morales, said he was removed by a coup and that he would continue to fight. He spoke from Mexico, where he was granted asylum. The leftist leader resigned on Sunday after weeks of protest over a disputed presidential election result. With Morales thousands of miles away in Mexico City, crowds of his supporters carrying colorful flags and banners marched in the capital while his party lawmakers looked to unseat Joaquin Anez, the Senate vice president who stepped in on Tuesday. 52-year-old Anez said she wanted elections as soon as possible and denied a coup had taken place against leftist leader and newly exiled Morales, who hinted he could return to Bolivia. Anez, who has already overhauled some of Morales' policies, faces a challenge from lawmakers of Morales' movement for socialism, who have a majority in parliament and have threatened a rival session to nullify her presidency. Anez was forced to declare herself president after legislators from the MAS party boycotted her swearing-in. She instead revoked a constitutional clause as the next person in line for succeeding the president. Hong Kong's embattled leader Carrie Lam says protesters who were trying to paralyze the city were extremely selfish. She expressed the hope that all universities and schools will urge students not to participate in violence. Lam was speaking a day after police shot a protester and a man was set on fire in some of the most dramatic scenes to grip the city during the more than 5 months of civil unrest.
SAR Chief Executive Carrie Lam said it was selfish for violent protesters to try to bring down the city's transport system.
We all know that several routes of some public transportation have been destroyed. The protesters' actions of trying to disrupt traffic have badly affected local people's daily lives. Some violent protesters' actions, which aim to paralyze Hong Kong, which try to stop Hong Kong people from going to work or going home, are very selfish. But it is at this very tough moment that Hong Kong people of all walks of life are holding to their own position. They don't yield to those violent or radical behaviors. I'd like here to extend my gratitude to them.
She also said authorities will restart transportation facilities and continue to safeguard public safety.
The SAR government's transport department will keep a close eye on the current situation while taking corresponding measures. We will keep the locals updated on the traffic conditions. For the transportation facilities which were destroyed, especially some routes, related departments will rush to the scene and launch repairs. We will keep providing service for the people. The SAR government hopes to provide a safe and high-quality environment for the local people to continue their daily lives as soon as possible.
It's barely a month to the British elections, and Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Conservative parties have something to celebrate. A national poll gives them a healthy 10-point lead ahead of the election. This extends their advantage over Labour after the Brexit Party withheld its candidate. The poll carried out for the Daily Telegraph newspaper showed the Conservative Party with 40%, up 3 points from the poll last week. Labour stands at 30%, up 1 point. The poll was conducted after Nigel Farage said his Brexit Party would not put candidates up in Conservative-held seats, a major boost to Johnson. The Brexit Party will still stand candidates in Labour-held seats. The poll showed the Liberal Democrats at 16% and the Brexit Party 7%. Voting analyst website Electoral Calculus says the vote shares implies a Conservative majority of 110 seats. The online poll of 2,022 adults was carried out on Monday and Tuesday.
Up next, sport. Viewers slam NTA over poor TV coverage of Super Eagles match. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. This is ANN News in Sport. Nigeria football lovers have expressed anger on Twitter with the hashtag shame on NTA for the poor coverage of Wednesday's Africa Cup of Nations match between Nigeria's Super Eagles and Benin Republic. South African cable sports channel SuperSport had announced for some days earlier that it would be unable to continue broadcasting any Confederation of African football content following the sudden cancellation of the $1 billion deal between the continent's football governing body and French company. Nigerians frowned at the poor quality of pictures, graphics, and commentary. A Twitter user said, "Shame on NTA, in fact, shame on Nigeria. Imagine we can't enjoy good TV coverage in a game played in Nigeria. Shame on all of you." End quote. Frankfurt captain David Abraham has been handed a 7-week suspension and a $27,500 fine for barging into an opposition team's manager. The defender knocked coach Christian Streich to the ground during his side's 1-0 defeat in the German Bundesliga after deeming that Abraham was guilty of assault on the opponent. The German Football Association banned the 33-year-old from November the 10th until end of December. The punishment means Abraham won't feature in the Bundesliga again this year. Frankfurt announced they intend to appeal the decision. That is the ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.